It is a sunny day in Varberg. Today is a heck of a mix. And you can join me for the ride. I'm Lars Wikman, and this is Underjord. It is not necessarily a lovely day in good old Varberg. It is a rather rainy day, and I'm heading into town. Partially because I need to get presents for the kids, and partially to meet up with some of the tech people of Varberg. We will go to a newly formed kind of Varberg tech enthusiast entrepreneurial hub thingy majig. Kind of a co-working space that's open Wednesday mornings. That's where I'm heading. I figured I'd take you along for a ride, show you a little bit of the town, and then, I don't know, maybe a life lesson or two. I doubt it. But let's go for a drive, okay? First time rigging a camera in a car. See if we can't get an angle. That's my leg. Trixie, Trixie. Now we're in Varberg. What I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about how I got to be in the fortunate position I am, which is doing software development for a living. Because it wasn't quite so easy a journey. I'm self-taught, so I didn't go to school, I didn't do software engineering, didn't do computer science, none of that. But I got into computers and programming really early on, so in my teens at least. And that's when I got into HTML. Hold on, just gotta check. How long can I park here? 4 hours, fantastic. Like, getting into the web and HTML and all of that was a very good thing for me. But it didn't pay off for the longest time. So let's say I started learning around 14 years of age, I think. And I don't believe I got paid to work on software until I was 21 or maybe 23. Around there somewhere. Fundamentally, it was just that it wasn't that I didn't learn enough to do it until then. It was that no one would really give me the chance until then. And if you're learning software development, this is the situation you're in coming out of a boot camp. You have a slightly better situation than I did with regards to actually having some credentials. You have a slightly worse situation than I did due to kind of the maturity of the business and expectations about what kind of experience people want from software. It's a little bit rainy today. I hope that gives ambiance. I knew how to program from, like, I think I could have done a decent job at a web shop from the age of 18, pretty much. Took 5 more years before I got paid to do software development. I think my first piece of paid work was actually paid with a color laser printer. Maybe more on that when we get to the co-working space, okay? Then I'll tell you a little bit about one way that I got through. That's something that I think can be reproduced for others. Now let's enjoy the environment. And we are here. Let's see if we can't get out of the weather. There's a lot of weather today. And there are a lot of stairs here. Judging by the man in the background, I don't think they're open yet. Man with key arrived, so now I'm in. This it's kind of a neat space. I like this. I guess, are these rafters? So I think this was originally part of kind of the port, like a port authority, like managing import and stuff. It's a nice old building. View's pretty good. But this is the baby start of tech in Malberg. Okay, time to tell the story about how I got to be a professional developer. I play role-playing tabletop games. And in Sweden we have this thing called a förening, which is kind of a non-profit kind of dealio. And you can form these around, for example, role-playing games and maybe get some stipends from the state and kind of get some support in pulling together your activities. Football teams, bird watchers, like everyone does it. I made a website for ours. So I built a custom CMS in PHP. I was around 20 and I had a lot of spare time, so unemployed, barely studying. So I did a lot of building, and I built this CMS in PHP where we had our guest book, we had our custom forum, we had our calendar. And a number of years into all of that, a friend of a friend who was also in the tabletop org, he was moving and we were looting his place for things he wanted to sell. And I wanted his computer, so I was going to buy that. And I wanted his printer, but I couldn't really motivate paying for it. And he was like, "You do web, right?" Yeah, I do web. I did the web for the tabletop folks. "Could you help me build a website? Can you do like WordPress and Joomla?" I haven't done Joomla, but done a fair bit of WordPress and all of that. And it's like, I need a website by Saturday. This was a Thursday. Could you do that? If you have like colors and design, I think I could. Yeah, sure. So we agreed that he would pay me with a color laser printer, and I helped him build a website that was for his client. So he was an entrepreneur, meaning he likes to build businesses, and he was doing consulting as a project manager, and he was working with a public sector org in Gothenburg. And his web person had gone dark. They just stopped responding and stopped working. So we needed a new one. And as you do when you're a business person that can't do the tech yourself, you look for opportunities, you look for solutions. And he saw that I could perhaps be a solution to his problem. That was my chance. He was happy with my output. He needed more work done. So I started my kind of self-employed solo business because he did not want to employ anyone, and started working with him, for him, with these public sector clients. So I was contracted in by the public sector org and started working on a sort of like learning platforms, websites, a bunch of different web projects. Super fun, and that bootstrapped my entire career. Like, that was the key. When we wrapped up that engagement, I think I had 2 years of professional experience on my CV. That is all it took. And then I also had a bit of a network. So I have never really interviewed for a position in my life. Technically, I had an interview for that position, but I was essentially a write-in, because he already knew that I could do the work. So it was mostly a matter of not completely screwing up a conversation with his boss or his client. But from then, I've had interview-ish situations, but generally it's just been moving from connection to connection, looking for what do I want to do next? What are interesting projects? What are interesting products? The key there is that someone was willing to take a chance on me, and I've tried to pay that forward. The people that work with me currently are people that were just straight out of boot camp-ish, Swedish boot camps for software development, like högskola. They would probably have found work eventually, but that threshold from having never had a programming job to having your first programming job is a big threshold, and after that things get easier. generally. So I try to ensure that good people get help on that journey, and I could do that for a couple of people. There's a limit to how many I can handle, but that was important to me. Like a wild entrepreneur ends up taking a chance on me. That's kind of why I find this place interesting, because it is mostly filled with wild entrepreneurs, and I don't think entrepreneurship is the solution to everything. That's not kind of my jam. I'm a little bit too socialist for that, but it has helped me, and I know that people learning to be programmers in the city would also benefit from someone giving them the benefit of the doubt at some point and kind of carrying them over that threshold of trust. Like, do you believe that this person can do this work? And this is where networking comes in. We should talk more about networking. Networking, kind of big topic, but to me that's kind of a fake it till you make it kind of deal, unfortunately. Because when you're starting out, or whenever you kind of need to get connected, you need relationships, that's when you're the worst suited to making connections and building relationships, because you are in need. And it's very easy to throw off that vibe of like, I really need some help. I need you to do things for me. I need you to make things happen for me. I don't think I've ever been particularly successful with networking when I was in that space of mind or in that particular vein. Rather, what has always worked for me is being curious about what other people are doing, being positive and optimistic about the possibilities, like, maybe we can do that, maybe I can help. Giving, a little bit windy out today. Offering things for free, offering free advice, not a ton of free work, like, none of us can do that consistently. It's like, that doesn't make sense. But being generous, being optimistic, being engaged, being curious, that's kind of how I make connections. And the connections and relationships with the people is what matters. Because people don't actually look at a CV and go, this person has a Java course in his pocket. He can do a bunch of Java for me. They go, hey, I lost my web guy. You know web, right? And you're a friend of a friend. So I have some inkling that I can probably trust you to do what I ask, do what I need. And you have some proven record that you can actually do a thing. Yeah, that's what they look for. And if they can't find evidence that you can do a thing, at least if they can find evidence that you're engaged, that you're enthusiastic, that you're a person that likes when things happen, that you are at least willing to try, that's kind of what people end up looking for then. It's a tricky thing, because when you're starting out, you can't really promise that you can deliver results. You can't really know that you can help anyone. It's just tricky. But making relationships, ideally before you need them, is kind of the name of the game. That's part of why I'm connected with this whole thing in Varberg. Like, I don't particularly need a bunch of work right now. I'm not hurting for clients. Actually, I might have more than I need right now. But I want to make relationships here, because in the longer term, having work locally might be a kind of cool thing. I think it could be fun. I think it could be beneficial. I think it will help me, the people I know, potentially my kids, in the long term. Being connected to the place where I am. I usually work internationally. I usually work remotely. But there are just a bunch of potential possibilities from making these connections now rather than kind of waiting around and like, oh, international work dries up. Suddenly I'm out of work, and suddenly I need to make all these connections, make things happen. And also, fundamentally, I want to make things happen locally. I want people to find Elixir. I want people to have a career in tech. I want to help people leverage the same things that I leveraged to get a good life for themselves. And doing things locally is just straight up cooler than doing things in like some international wider sense to me. It is more rewarding, it's more fun, you get to go outside of occasionally. I'm doing a networking effort. I'm putting some work in, I'm going places, I'm talking to people. And of course, I'm already in the position of being able to do things, being able to help people, having a proven track record. So I'm fortunate in that regard. But I am also still kind of unknown here. I am making a name for myself. I'm carving out a bit of space and saying, this is what I do. I'm talking to people, I'm building those relationships, and eventually I think there will be some benefit from it. But there doesn't have to be any particular financial upside. The wind is going wild. But suffice to say, networking should ideally be done before you need the work. Like if you're in school, if you're in training, make those connections, get to know the people that you expect will be the ones that can give you work in the future. Make those connections before then. Don't expect your school to solve it for you. Don't expect your CV to solve it for you, because that generally doesn't happen. That's a very rough path. Make connections, get to know people that are already in the industry. See if you can be of help to them. Follow up on people that are willing to talk to you. See where it gets you. Make relationships. That's what networking is. And a lot of people think networking is an event. You go and you do a network. you go to an event and people will force you to connect with other people. It doesn't happen. And networking events where like there are mandatory conversations, I don't think much comes of that generally. It's always about what you put in. And sometimes it's rough. I went years without... Honestly, the years I went without work were also years when I didn't know anything about networking and I didn't know anyone where I was. So I had no network, I had no connections, and I had no prospects. And if I knew what the heck I was doing at the time, I would have probably tried to meet more programmers and meet their bosses and see if I could help somewhere, see if I could get started. I know that now. Hopefully this helps someone. All right, I gotta go take a man for lunch. Interestingly, he has a company and they actually do use Elixir for their product. And they are considering hiring some additional people or bringing in some additional contractors. So, you know, it might pay off. Networking. Occasionally you need to take a client meeting even when you're out and about on the town. Then you find a cafe, you sit down, you have a coffee, and you talk to some people. So let's get started with the meeting. Meeting over. Time to go buy some stuff for my kid's birthday. 2 of them. And they both have birthdays in like May and June. So now I have to run around the town before I have to get home and just figure out some presents. Good times. Let's go! These are some very, very gendered sections. Well, I mixed and matched as well as I could. This year has a really fun thing. I'm gonna go buy a bicycle for the 3-year-old. That's gonna make her very, very happy. But first, clothing handled. Next, book. I found the books I wanted for my kids pretty quickly, or some that I think are nice at least and that will be enjoyed. Jungle Book Mowgli, that kind of thing. And a book about lamps for the 1-year-old. We'll see how he likes it. Onwards. Wow, it's bright out. Still need to buy clothes for the littlest one. I think I'll check one store for that. Mission accomplished. Bought more and spent more than intended. Mission semi-accomplished. One thing, I have poor impulse control. Second thing, I like buying things for my kids. It's not an ideal combo for saving money, but at least my kids are happy. I don't think the buying really matters in that regard. Onwards, to get a bicycle. This one's gonna sting in the wallet. My hair is going everywhere. And that's my older car, the Ford. It has been out in the sun all day. And I'm so looking forward to sitting down in it and driving. Actually, I'm gonna try to rig a better camera setup than my previous drive because that stuff fell over and I did not enjoy having a camera fall over while I'm driving. So let's see if we can't do something better with a slightly smaller camera. So that is the experimental... I guess that's the experimental rig now. I am at least much less concerned if that camera falls over than if this camera falls over. It's kind of a cynical thing, this idea that you need to do networking and sell yourself to people and trying to find people that are willing to take a gamble on you just for the sake of getting a job where you can apply your trade. That it's not enough to get educated and have some kind of proof that you know a particular skill or that you've been trained in a particular skill. That's not enough. That someone has to take a chance on you. That the hard-earned skills that you have worked to study and establish and prove, that's not enough. I'd love it if that weren't the case. But coming from the other side, I have hired people, both in my current company and in the past. I'm part of interviewing people, I've been part of bringing people into teams. And whenever you're dealing with people that lack experience, you have very limited information. Like the projects they've done at school is usually not enough to say anything particularly useful about who they are or what they could achieve. So you end up trying to figure out if this is an appropriate person for your team more than whether they're a skilled developer. Because a skilled developer is never enough. You always need someone who's also a good teammate, who's easy to work with, collaborates well, maybe communicates well. Whether they did good in school doesn't really say that. And in the end, you're going to take a chance on someone. You can de-risk that by knowing in front, this person is easy to deal with, easy to work with, this person has good drive, I've done things with this person where they stepped up, or they proved that they're somewhat reliable, or they have a good work ethic, whatever it may be. So this is why kind of trainee programs, or rather internships, which is usually part of the education system here in Sweden, especially when it comes to web development, boot campy things, can be very beneficial because you may be given a chance to show who you are to a company and build a relationship that can then turn into... Little camera found it a little bit too warm. It completely pieced out. So I'm trying to rig a big camera to take over. It's talking, saying important things. Let's see if we can recover. Teaching the people. Take myself all that seriously. Okay. Let's see if we can get all the way to the bike shop while talking with the camera without overheating. We'll see. It's not in the sun at least. So as I was saying, sometimes like an internship can let you prove yourself. Show kind of your character, show some of your skill as well. Newly minted developers are generally not particularly skilled, and they don't necessarily have to be. You need to learn the fundamentals of the tools, then you need to learn a mindset, and then you need to practice, and that's how you get good. And once you get good, you get useful and benefit people. But when in a hiring situation, you are operating on limited information, and you will always kind of default to, oh, I know this person, or I know kind of how this person operates. This is a known quantity and it's decent. That's all you need. You need someone to believe that you are decent, because that means you are beating the average. You just need to run faster than the other guy, zombie apocalypse style. And that's kind of what this whole networking thing is about. Take meetups, for example. Like, if you've helped organize a meetup, you don't need to be like super knowledgeable about programming to help run a meetup. If you can carry chairs, you can help with a meetup. If you can help order food, you can help with a meetup. But if you've helped with a meetup and you've gone to programming school of some sort, the people involved in the meetup are more likely to eventually hire you, because they know that you are willing to do things, that you can get stuff done. They know something about working with you on projects, trying to do things in collaboration with you. I think that's kind of the key to networking. It is not just about shaking hands and figuring out what options are out there and hoping that they will pick you. As someone who has done hiring, you will always pick someone that's a known quantity, or that seems engaged, enthusiastic, active, involved. It doesn't mean that you'll always get the best programmer, but I also don't value like programming skill to be the be-all end-all. To me, it's more important that someone is kind, friendly to work with, that someone communicates about what they need and what they want and what they care about. That makes much more difference than whether they know their database is inside out, how clean their functions are. How clean is your code? Clean code, man. And I do think it's kind of cruel that the market is such that companies are screaming for experienced developers. Right now, it's a little bit, at this current moment with all the tech layoffs, it's a little bit calmer than it has been. But overall, people really, really want experienced developers. They are very, very, as a general rule, not interested in inexperienced devs and kind of training them up. No one wants to take on that cost, that risk when dealing with known quantities. And I think that it's super unfortunate, but since that's the situation, I think it is very important, if you want to distinguish yourself and get into the industry, it is important to build a network, build connections, and distinguish yourself from the rest of the people around you. And there are a ton of ways to do it. Do whatever is kind of your strong suit, what makes you happy. Try to do it in a way that fits your particular personality and style. I bet that'll also give better results. But it generally means interacting with other people. Building like projects in isolation having a portfolio is okay. Trust, social relationships, networking, I think will beat that 9 times out of 10. We have arrived. We are at the local bike shop. Okay, local bike shop time. Now, the challenge with bike shops is that there's so much to choose from. Kid's bike is beast mode. Let's see if we can capture it in all its glory. How do you do glamour shots? Up. You like it at an angle? I think she's gonna love it. My hair is a mess. Let's go. We are here. So thanks for coming along on this kind of mixed day. Thank you for watching. Stay curious out there.